This one is mostly about Jason Jepsen. There's two Jason Jepsens, two different Jepsen families from Chapel. There's Gary Jepsen's son, Jason. Gary Jepsen is a good man, his whole family are. They're humanitarians, they're hard workers, they're just good people. And then there's Ron and Terry Jepsen's son, Jason. That's the one I'm going to talk about now. This is because of my castle idea. See, I didn't think about building a giant castle. The castle idea for me is a safe environment for people like me, and for the homeless, and for victims of domestic abuse and childhood abuse. People who have been through war, people who have been through terrible things and have sensory overload issues. People who can't live in a world so fast-paced. Little Jason, he's a real psycho. He tried chopping his sister's feet off with a garden hoe. And that was just the first stories that I heard of him. Now, more recently, see, mind you, he's a meth addict. He tried attacking me once in Jeff Baldridge's garage, and I was so nice to him. I fucked up a rib on the way down on a chair, but I was so nice to him. I mean, I held him there just enough to keep him from harming me and to keep him from harming himself. Later on, when he really got into meth with Jason Vogt, he would do anything to get his meth. He got his wife pregnant, and he had a meth rock that he was really into his rock collection. And he had a meth rock in his rock collection that he used to show me every time he invited me over. And he'd brag about how his wife walks by it every single day. Meanwhile, having that in the house could have put her in jeopardy, and it could have put his children at risk. The one that wasn't born yet, as well as the one that was already there. The contamination from that methamphetamine could have killed his daughters. But even worse than that, little Jason Jepsen tried to kill his wife, tried to shoot her. He didn't spend hardly any time in jail, and now he's getting frail, he's getting skinny from the mass quantities of drugs that he uses. When I came up with the castle idea, it was more of just a wayward idea. I was about 7 or 8, I suppose, and I had a footlocker, and my footlocker, I had various toys that, you get them out of the dime machine. They didn't have quarter machines in the 1980s so much. I mean, there were some, but that was the expensive toys, and I couldn't afford them. Once in a while, you'd find a dime on the ground, though, and you put it in the dime machine, and you get the stuff out of it. And you collect some garbage, like, the little thing that sits in the center of a pizza when they have it delivered in a box. And those were the tables. And I had Legos in there, and I had just whatever I could get hold of. It was like a little hangout for, I suppose, my imaginary friends. I always imagined, you're in an institution, you're being harmed, you're being hurt. I always imagined it was a place of peace where people didn't do those things, a place where I could escape from my reality, much like video games did for me tell the situation at Lana Ingeline's and how mean and cruel they were. I didn't even get to play my video games up there. I didn't have any on my computer that would work. Their internet didn't work well enough for my online video games. So I tried downloading Rome Total War, and that took a couple of days. It might have been Samurai Total War that I was trying to download. I finally was able to finish the download the night that I left because Miss Jerry was the one who took me to the bus station. The first person that I actually sat down with and seriously talked about the castle idea with was Jamie Curtis's mother. And at that time, I was already an adult, and we were discussing having it underground so that, people wouldn't even know it was there, and it would be a safe place. And there would be a rec room. She had this idea about having a rec room covered in carpet with cubby holes and stuff like that for kids to play in. Jenny really had a kind of a thing for that. And there would be animals there, service animals or comfort animals. And I really liked that idea. Well, I was working with little Jason Jepsen at a place called Cashway in Sydney. I was what's called a lumper. My job was to help them unload the trucks, and I was getting paid cash. And Lana and Amanda Ingeline, I was starting to try to buy this house here in Chapel, Nebraska, up on 6th Street. 582 6th Street. I'll probably go up there and take a video of it at some point today. I don't know if I'll get in trouble or not. I don't even know who owns the place now. But I told Sammy and Shelly I could not afford the place. It was only $200 a month, but at the time, working at a Cashway and having to work with Jason Jepsen every day, and he is such a dick. And so one day I was waiting on him to take me to work, and he just didn't show up. And in order to convince me to move in, to buy the place, because Lana Ingeline and Shelly were really good friends. They had an ex-husband in common. His name is Wayne. And Lana and Amanda were going to move up not South Dakota, up to Montana with Miss Shelly. And they said that they would pay me for taking care of the dogs because they had a dog rescue called Gamma, Give a Mud Home. Oh, they didn't pay. They didn't pay the money that they said they would. And the animal control lady here in Chapel, Nebraska, her name is Terry Duffield. She made sure that the dogs had food, but it was just too much for me to handle. And Jason not showing up. So I had these bills that needed to get paid. And I'd gone to Torrington, Wyoming, or Byron, Wyoming, to help with some dryland farming and other assorted stuff up there with a guy named Devin Frericks. And it was backbreaking labor. We were tearing out some irrigation, and I got back to the house, and it was flooded out, the whole basement. Amanda Ingeline's stuff was down there, so it got ruined. She was pissed off at me about that. Jason Jepsen was being a real big dick to me at the time, and I had problems with people breaking into my house, and the local sheriff, Jeff Taco Ortiz, not doing anything about it. I even knew who it is that broke into my house. It was a guy named Damian Applegate and a guy named Drake Edward Chambers. Well, Jamie Curtis, I really hadn't hung out with her in a while. There was a situation with her and her ex-boyfriend Chris Stegeman that made it so that I wasn't allowed to go over and talk to her at the time. Jamie and I were still friends. It was just, she had moved on. She had gone to Wyoming or Kansas for college, and she'd gotten married and a bunch of other stuff and had a kid. I was so stressed out I didn't have any friends. They'd all turned into meth heads. Everyone. Case Layton Morris, Jason Vogt, little Jason Jepsen, Matt Worley, Adam Garrett. These were all my friends, and they all were strung out on meth. And I gave up. I didn't want to live anymore. I didn't want to have people screaming at me all the damn time because I couldn't afford what they wanted. Lan Hingline had a habit of making empty promises to pay and just never doing so. I did a lot of back-breaking work for that woman that I never got paid for. And the city office, they charged me $50, and that was more than I could handle at the time. But I was able to pay it. And then the next month it was $50 again, and I asked them about it. I was like, hey, is this right? They're like, oh yeah, we go by and read the meter every month, that's right. I'm like, it should be more than this. And I'd been able to get enough money put together that if it was more than that, I could pay it. But they promised me that's all it was. And then the next 2 months, my bill was almost $400 for 2 months in a row. And I just gave up. I took a plastic rope and I put it around my neck and I jumped out of a tree. And my house is in Chapel, Nebraska, mind you. And this is New Year's Day. And the rope broke. It was a cheap plastic rope. It was old as shit and it was frayed as fuck. And I actually spent a whole year digging little chunks of plastic rope out of my neck. And I decided I was going to go jump off the viaduct here in Chapel, Nebraska in front of the first train I saw. And on my way there, I found out about Jamie's mother dying in a car accident. And my heart dropped. And I couldn't stop thinking about Jamie and how we were friends and how devastating that would be. Not just losing her mother, but also her and I used to be really close friends, She was one of the first people I met when I moved to Chapel, Nebraska. She was 9 and I was 15. Well, I became friends with Jamie after that. Little Jason continued to be a nuisance and continued to be an asshole, and every time I saw him, he tried to start an argument. And I helped him out a lot, but every time I helped him out, it seemed like he just wanted to be a bigger dick. Like he was ashamed of getting that help. But also, he was addicted to drugs. Still is. A lot of people have taken advantage of me in my lifetime. They take advantage of the fact that I am a decent person, the fact that I do care about people. But they don't have to lie to me to get my help. a lot of women I know that have called me up for a rescue, from Jamie Curtis to Lana Engeline to Amanda Engeline to Jerry Sparks. All of them tell me about the abusive relationships that they're in. And then when they decide to get back together with the guy, they tell me a completely different story. And I can't see them. And with Jamie, it was worse because her son was probably the first person I ever really bonded with. Him and Jamie both. I mean, I helped raise that boy for the first year and a half of his life. But I've also had to deal with some real psychos as a result. Not as a result of Jamie's son. I mean, Jamie herself is pretty well psycho. I had to deal with a lot of psychos because I am good-natured, because I do want to help and I do care. And for a lot of these people, the only thing that makes them psycho is their drug addictions. Like with Natalie Bollinger. It was her drug addictions that made her do the psycho crazy shit that she did, with no remorse for how it would affect me. Her one little white lie, she thought it was protecting herself from her own wrongdoing, but in actuality it was harming me. The amount of harm that I took over that and continue to take over that slander, and the fact that police did everything in their power to prevent me from showing evidence and even showing up in court to defend myself against them. At that point, I had enough evidence to bring down a lot of police officers, as well as most of the Bollinger family. I want my life to end every single day, because I was never allowed that. And while it didn't take these psychos who were helping them out even a few minutes to complain about every goddamn thing that I said and call every goddamn thing I posted spam. The people who pretended like they loved me and pretended like they cared never came forward about what they knew. But I did. I recorded their phone calls with me after I got out of jail. I recorded those phone calls to show the things that they should have come forward about. As pissed off as they want to be about me doing that, I shouldn't have had to. I shouldn't have had to record our phone calls to show the truth. They should have told the truth to fucking begin with. Knowing the fucking torture and hell that I was going through, they should have cared enough to come forward on their own. Then again, none of them actually took the time to find out what I was going through. Whenever I went to tell them what was going on, they were busy talking over me, telling me what to do, what to think, what to feel. A lot of people say, dude, you're just doing this for attention. Little Jepsen got on one of those posts, or one of those YouTube videos that the news had made about Natalie, and said I was just doing it for attention. Well, it's not just for attention. It's to bring attention to the fact that this situation happens a lot. A lot. To a lot of people. Little Jason is spoiled as fuck. He always had his family to rely on, and his druggy buddies to rely on. He always had help. If from nobody else, he at least got help from me. You know what made me jump out of that tree with that rope around my neck? I didn't have a job. My vehicle didn't work. I was trying to buy a house that I couldn't afford. I was having a mental fucking breakdown. I didn't have any friends. They were all just lip service. They were all just on drugs. That's why I stayed away from the drugs. That's why I stayed away from the meth. That's why I've never tried cocaine and never tried heroin. Ever. I learned my lesson young. Growing up on government medications, being force-fed those drugs, because my parents couldn't stay off the drugs. They couldn't stay off the cocaine in specific. Little Jepsen, he's got some severe mental issues. He got on there because he wanted attention. He wanted to be popular for hating me like so many others. That's what happens when you're slandered in the way that I was, and prevented from being allowed to defend yourself in court. This became a federal issue. A federal issue the day that Natalie disappeared. Because by that point, police in multiple jurisdictions and multiple states who had not done their jobs needed to protect themselves from their own wrongdoing, even if an innocent man took the fall for them. People like Officer Jordan Anderson, he was allowed to leave because I was pursuing him, trying to get him in court on the stand. Later on, Cody Selhorst was allowed to do the same. Same thing with Joel J., who also fled state. They're not the only ones. Nearly all of the people that I needed to pursue and take to court in order to free my name were allowed to move jurisdictionally to prevent that from happening. All of these people who took part in the stall tactics to prevent me from pursuing others were given a free ride. Were allowed to walk. Were allowed to get away with their crimes. And the only reason they were able to even commit those crimes to begin with is because nobody went in with me. Nobody cared to listen to what was going on. Does little Jason Jepsen know what's going on in this situation? No, he doesn't. Just like the rest of the American public. Y'all only get to see what they let you see. I don't have the computer skills that these web sleuths and web wingnuts have. I don't have the money to take them to court. I'm disabled, and I need help. But without the public actually giving a shit, I was never going to get an honest day in court. And with the way that my name was slandered, the American public hated me, and still do. How many people actually watch my videos? How many people watch my videos all the way through? Mostly just the ones who hate me, who are looking for any excuse, anything that they can take and twist in a way that it's not meant. There's a guy named Cryptic Cowboy. Pulled a couple short parts of a couple of videos where I was pissed off about the abuse that I was taking. About these situations. And he tried claiming it was all about Natalie. That's slander. And because I have nobody in my corner who actually cares to look at the evidence, to actually go through it with me, there's not a goddamn thing I can do about it except take the abuse that was created by assholes like that, and assholes like Mike Boudet and his friend and coworker Josh. There's a lot of people who were being nice because they wanted to get something out of me. People like Jennifer Jazowski. She never had any intention of helping me. Her intention was a paycheck. That's all she cared about.